PS4 and PS5 jailbreak tutorial. So we now have the Luac0re version 2.0 released by Jailbreak, now with the JIT exploit added, which is a huge deal because it effectively completes the mastercore exploit, which is something that Luac0re had been working on and did the whole write-up of a few years back, talking about the potential of this exploit if it ever was fully realized. He says here in the conclusion that the exploit would allow arbitrary code execution on the latest firmwares on the PS4 and PS5, allowing native homebrew applications to be run off a USB storage device as an example, and that's just with the userland exploit on its own. So it's one of the most powerful userland exploits we've seen on the PS4 and PS5 in terms of its capabilities, even when it's not being chained with the kernel exploit. So as you can see here, Jailbreak is saying that now that we have arbitrary native userland code execution on the latest PS4 and PS5 firmwares without requiring a kernel exploit, additionally, non-AF Unix domain socket creation restriction introduced in the PS5 firmware 8.0 can now be bypassed using the JIT exploit, meaning it works now up to the latest firmwares on the PS4 and PS5. Also, arbitrary native userland code execution means that we can write and run native homebrew and potentially might run backup games without a kernel exploit. That's still to be determined if we might be able to run, PS4 game backups using this on its own on the PS5, for instance, but there might be like size restrictions to bypass there. So we're not sure if that will actually work out or not, but certainly homebrew, maybe emulators could be run on this standalone without the need for a kernel exploit. So again, this will work up to the latest firmwares on the PS4 and PS5, so you can follow this video really no matter what firmware you're on for the most part on the PS4 and PS5. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can set this up. I'm going to set this up on my PS5, but the process is the same on a PS4 as well, so you can still follow this if you're wanting to set this up on a PS4. So we do have a couple of requirements. We need to get the save file installed on the console that contains the exploit, and a copy of the game that is used to load the exploit, which is Luac0re Revenge. It can be a digital edition copy or a physical copy of the game, but you need to have a copy of that game that you can run on your PS4 or PS5 to trigger the exploit. The hope is that other games may eventually get ported, but at the moment it is Luac0re Revenge is the only game that is currently supported. Technically, you could use the backup and restore method if you don't have an activated account, but that only works with the physical release of the game, because if you have a digital version of the game, which you can get on the latest firmware, you can just go and buy it now. If you're on firmware 12.70 on the PS5 or the latest firmware on the PS4, you can just buy a copy of that game on the digital store, and that means you have an activated account if you have the digital version. But if you have a physical release of the game, you're going to want to make sure you have an activated account, which you can do by simply signing out of your current profile and then pressing the options button under any of your profiles when you're in the sign-in screen to see if any of your accounts are activated. And you can tell if you have an activated account because when you press the options button, it will come up with the appear online and offline menu on your PS4 or PS5, and that shows that your account is in fact activated. So you need to make sure you have an activated account in order to be able to do this. Sign into that particular profile and you should be good to go. So if you have an activated account on your PS4 or PS5, all you need to do is, first of all, we're going to load up the Star Wars game, Luac0re Revenge. And the reason we're doing this is just to create a dummy save file. It makes the process a little bit easier, in my opinion, is to just create a base save here. So you can see there, game save data has been loaded. So that should have created a save file for the game. So there we go, Luac0re Revenge. And we should be good. Press start. I'll just press the start button. And once we're into the main menu, it should have created a save file. So all we need to do now is basically close the game. Then we're going to head over to our settings. We're going to scroll down to save data and game app settings, which is application save data management on the PS4. And then we're going to go to save data for PS4 here. And then we want to go to upload or delete from console. And then we want to select this copy to USB drive. So have your USB drive connected. Again, it needs to be a USB drive that's formatted in FAT32 or exFAT format. So plug that USB drive into your console, and then you can select this option to copy to USB. And we're going to select the Luac0re Revenge game and copy that over to the USB drive. So that is what we're going to do right there. So that's going to get our save data copied over to the USB. So now we can just unplug that USB drive and plug it in to our computer. Okay, so now we just need to download the exploit itself, Luac0re 2.0b. So download the latest version, the zip file, over to your computer. Now, if we take a look at the zip file itself, we can see we have two versions, CUSA 03474 and 03492. So one is the European version, the other one is the United States version. So what we need to do is check to see which version we have installed. So if we go over to our USB drive where we copied our save file out, we have our PS4 folder, we go in there, we go into our save data folder. This is our account ID folder, which is going to be important. So you can see my version is CUSA 03474. So that's the version that I'm going to want to use from the modified save file. It's going to be 03474. If yours is 03492, then you would use that version. So I'm going to copy out 03474 from the exploit. And now I need to re-sign this save file over to my account so it will work on my account on the PS5 or PS4. So we're going to use garlicsaves.com. This is what I would recommend for re-signing the save files. It's similar to the Discord save bots, but it is generally a lot easier to access and quicker to set up and use. All you have to do is register for a free account on this website. So create a new account. Then all you need to do is go to the dashboard section here and add a profile. So I'm going to create a profile called modded. And what I'm going to do here is in the PS4 saves folder in the USB drive, I'm going to copy that account ID folder that is right here inside the save data folder. I'm going to copy that account ID and then simply paste that in here as my account ID and add the profile. And that will add it in there, as you can see. So once we have created our profile, we can then go to the resign section here and select that profile as the account that we want to resign our save file to. Then we're just going to open up that CUSA folder here for the exploit that contains the save files. And we're going to drag and drop those save files into this box here and then start the resign process. Click that button and wait for the save files to be re-signed. So re-signing PS4 save is currently running. So we just wait for this to be completed. And there we go. It is now done. So it says re-sign done, download result. So we click download result and that will download our re-signed save files from the website. So we can now go ahead and open this up. And now we have the re-signed version of the save. So then all we need to do is go back to the save that we put on the USB drive and then go back into the folder that contains the save files. And we're essentially just going to replace them with the ones for the exploit save that are resigned to our account. So we're just going to copy those over, replace those files. And there we go. That is now done. So that is basically it. All we need to do is unplug that USB drive, plug it back into our PS4 or PS5. And on your PS4 or PS5, you're just going to go back into the save section again, which is save data and game app settings or application save data management on PS4 in the settings. And then again, we're going to go to PS4 saves. This time we're going to copy or delete from the USB drive. And then we're going to say copy to console storage. We're going to select the Star Wars save file and copy it. And we're going to say yes to copy it over. And as you can see, it copies over no problem. It doesn't give us any error messages saying it's for the wrong account because we successfully re-signed the save file to our account. So it should work without having to restore the backup file. And you now have the exploit all ready to go on your PS4 or PS5. Okay, so now we can test it by loading up the game. And hopefully we will have the exploit working here. Now I am on my 10.01 console. I don't have a PS5 on the latest firmware to test on, 12.70, but it should still be the same because the older version of this exploit never worked on firmwares above, I think, 8.0. So 8.0 and higher did not work, whereas this version should work all the way up to the latest firmwares on the PS5. Should be the same for PS4 also. So we're going to go ahead and press the start button, and then to activate it, we need to head down to the options menu. And then we go to Hall of Fame and we press X on that. And that should trigger the exploit. There we go, mounting save data. So it's the USA version I had. I thought it was probably the European version, but it's the USA version. And there we go, Luac0re 2.0b by Jailbreak platform PS5 10.01 firmware. So we get the actual exploit loading here. We give it a little while, and there we go. JIT exploit initialized. Luac0re 2.0b by Jailbreak. Remote Lua loader is running. on 10.01 firmware on the PS5, which was previously unsupported. And you can see it's listening on the PS5's IP address on port 9026. So this is a remote Lua loader, which effectively means you can send Lua scripts over the network to execute on your console. Eventually we'll get some Lua scripts that might be able to do some interesting things. Maybe the ability to, load homebrew off a USB or something like that. And eventually we hope to get the kernel exploit for the poopsploit implemented so we can send that as a Lua script to run it. And we'll be able to jailbreak the PS5 using this. To test the remote Lua loader, if we go back to the main project, there is a payloads folder, and this contains the current payloads. We can expect new payloads to get added to this over time to do more interesting things with this exploit. At the moment, we have a basic Hello World Lua file and a shell core test. So if we click on the Hello World one, we can download that one, and the shell core test, we can go ahead and download the raw file for that one as well. And then to send these to the PS5, we can use a payload injector like Netcat GUI version 1.3 or some other payload injector and just drag in the Lua file here, so helloworld.lua, and we enter the PS5's IP address into the IP box, and the port number was 9026, so the information that is there that it says it's listening on. So at that point, we can just click inject payload, and when we click inject payload, it will send that over to the PS5, and you can see there, hello from remote Lua. So it successfully executed that payload. Now I'll also try the shell core test as well and send that one over. And we can see that has also executed successfully. So there we go. We have a remote Lua loader successfully working there on the PS5. And of course, it's the same on the PS4 as well. So that is how you get the exploit set up. Obviously, there's nothing significant we can run with it right now, but this is just how to get it set up initially so you're ready for when things come out that we can actually use this to load, like potentially running homebrew directly from the userland exploit on higher firmwares. And of course, once the 12.0 kernel exploit is implemented, we can also use this to trigger that and jailbreak the console using this as well. So anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this video.